February 5th, 2024, and I want to ask Councilor Durek to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sue, will you call the roll, please?
Councilor Bailey?
Here.
Councilor Carbone?
Here.
Councilor Clancy?
Here.
Councilor Durek?
Here.
Councilor Rhodes?
Here.
Councilor Timbrow?
Here.
Councilor Zambrello?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Forrest?
Present.
Mayor Lesser?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Well, good evening, everyone. Tonight is a very special evening. We are launching the first ever Citizen Recognition Awards, and we have two very special people to recognize. And I'm so excited we have such a wonderful crowd here tonight. And we also have our first recipient watching on TV with his daughter, and we'll talk about him in just a minute. But thank you all for being here. And I just want to tell you a little bit about the process. We started this last year with last council, and we formed a Citizen Recognition Committee. It was Councilor Carbone, myself, Jody Latina, and John Galvin, and our town manager, Fred Presley. And the five of us reviewed different nominations for our first ever Key to the Town Award, which we're going to give out in a few minutes, and our first ever Spirit of Wethersfield Award, which we'll also give out in a few minutes, and couldn't be more excited about that. So Shelley, Jody, John, and Fred, thank you very much. So at this time, what we're going to do is we're going to present the first award, which is the Key to the Town 2024 to Phil Loman, and I'm going to ask, I know we have the red in, but I'm going to ask David Forrest and Deb Hamer to come up and say a few words, and I think I'm going to come out with a microphone, hopefully.
Do you want to sit just over here? Or?
Maybe. You could start there, yeah.
Okay.
I can go over there too.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Lesser, the rest of the council, and the team that put this together to nominate Phil and award him with the inaugural Key to the Town of Wethersfield. As Ken indicated, he asked us to speak on behalf of Phil. Phil is in New York with his family, wherever the camera is. Hi, Phil. Everybody wave to him. So good evening, my friend Phil. And as I look up at this crowd here, and I see so many of us that had a positive, or Phil had a positive impact on over these many, many years, he's being recognized tonight for this award. I do want to mention one other, and this is always hard for me. Looking down on us and taking note of what's going on here this evening is his wife, Geraldine. And she would be so proud of Phil for getting this award, the first inaugural award. So, Phil, this is on behalf of Geraldine, too. Phil was raised in Brooklyn, and Phil made it to Wethersfield years ago and made this his home. And right here in front of me is one of the examples of his creativity, and that's the Fiddler on the Roof. And this is put out on the Scarecrow Festival in Old Wethersfield. And it sits there at the Temple Beth Torah, which is on Main Street, and with the tradition arrow right here. But that's just one of Phil's many creative designs that he does. Secondly, there is a celebratory menorah, which sits in front of the temple as well. And that's lit for each day of the holiday of Hanukkah. And that is also part of one of the events that goes on in the Old Wethersfield Holidays on Main. So that is another one of his creations. And another of his creations, we have a little surprise coming down behind the councilors.
Come on down.
Is the Red Onion. This is the brainstorm of Phil years ago, and the Red Onion marches and the parades in Old Wethersfield. And we are so happy that Jess, who's underneath there, we're going to tell you who the mascot is able to come this evening and help us celebrate Phil's award. Thank you.
Thank you.
That wasn't easy getting that big onion in here this year. Phil's contributions were not limited to his graphic arts abilities and the like. His intellect was very well received by serving on town commissions, town boards, and as a trustee at the temple. It is truly fitting that this modest man was responsible for so much as he is being honored here this evening. And I think it just bears credit. And lastly, on behalf of the Temple of Beth Torah, on behalf of the Wethersfield Historic Commission, the Webb Dean Museum, the Hartford Current, friends, others, we want to again give a huge shout out to Phil. I guess, is this the camera up here we should be looking at? Okay. There's one over there too. We are honored to accept this key to the town of Wethersfield, and I might add the inaugural key to the town of Wethersfield on his behalf. And Deb has some thoughts too.
So this is how David and I roll. He drops the emotional piece, and then I'm the comic relief, or we try. Phil has been a very dear friend of mine and a Temple Beth Torah colleague for many years now. David and the mayor have noted some of Phil's many contributions to our town. You've seen a few of them now tonight. No matter what it's been, it's always provided without fanfare, yet with the utmost professionalism, talent, and attention to detail. One very quick detail story. When Phil created a map of the Broad Street Green for the Village Improvement Association, which you can see out in the hallway just to the right, it hangs there. He was so pleased to show me how he had included my son's driveway basketball hoop in our little house sketch. In Phil's frequent bicycle rides past our home, he had noted that our son would spend hours out there shooting hoops, making it important enough to include it in the map. So our hoop is in that map. Like all Phil does, this project was done with heart. In fact, it's really the way he lives his life, with heart. So from my heart to yours, Phil, much love. We are both proud and honored to represent you here this evening, and our thanks to the mayor and everyone involved to make that happen.
So, thank you, David. Thank you, Deb, Phil, and your daughter, Melissa, watching. Thank you so much. We are so proud to present the first key to the town of Wethersfield to Phil Lohman. The 2024 key to the town presented to Phil Lohman for his significant contributions to the town of Wethersfield. So you can see this. This is going to be mailed to Phil, to his daughter, and I did speak to Phil on the phone, and this really raised his spirits. And he is really grateful that he's being recognized. And he's a very humble guy, but his contribution has been so many to the town. It's just a small token of what we can do to give back to him. So again, I thank David, I thank Deb, I thank the committee, Jody, John, Shelley, Fred. This is a great person to give our first inaugural 2024 key to the town of Wethersfield. So thank you, everybody. We have another award. The second award we're going to give out tonight is called the Spirit of Wethersfield Award, and it's going to be given to Zach Zapatka, and I'm going to ask his family and friends to come up, and Stephanie, I think, is going to say a few words on behalf of Zach, and then we'll present him with the award. So, and anyone else from your group is welcome, Stephanie, if you want.
They're all chicken.
Raw chicken. So you guys can, yeah. I know you brought a great group, and there's someone from Georgia here, so.
So this is Zach. I wanted to thank everyone on the nominating committee first for receiving the application and acknowledging Zachary. Zachary is 34. He has been in our town since he was born, and he gives back in a way that's unmeasurable. He is known as Mr. Wethersfield, the big guy. Everybody knows him in every establishment, and if I'm without him, there's something wrong in the universe, because we're always together, and he brings light and joy to everybody. So I can't thank the friends and family, from Zach's employment to family to neighbors to therapeutic rec to colleagues of mine. So we are so blessed, and Wethersfield really is a great place to live. As we know, it was in the paper, right? One of the top places to live. So I think Zachary embodies everything good that Wethersfield has to offer. So thank you all very much. Vinny, just saw you too. So thank you all. Do you want to say thank you? You too. Do you want to say thank you?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the committee is so honored to recognize Zach with the first ever Spirit of Wethersfield Award presented to Zachary Zapaka for Outstanding Citizen for the town of Wethersfield. We thank you for that spirit. It pervades all of Wethersfield, for your smiling, your effervescence, and we really appreciate you being here for all of us. So congratulations on winning the first ever Spirit of Wethersfield Award. So another congratulations to Phil and Zach. We truly appreciate your contributions to Wethersfield. I want to put a plug in too, as we do the 2025 awards next year. We would love to see many, many applications about the great contributions people are making. So John, Jody, Shelley, and I, and Fred will be looking for those, so please do that. We would love for all of you to stay, but those of you who may want to leave, you're going to miss a very exciting council meeting. But those of you who want to leave, we'll take a 2-minute break to pause, as I suspect some folks will leave.
I didn't know if it was like a second home or what. No, it's fine. I had it before. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it out this way if you want to grab the door. Just the door? Really? Because honestly, it's not that heavy. Takes away the awkwardness.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's just, there were some Congress people there, but no one like super. But it was good. It was a good experience, and I would go watch it. It really is like a very cool.
All right.
Yeah, wow.
Okay, if everybody kind of take their seats, we're going to get started again. And we have a presentation on the Wethersfield Youth Voices Count Survey results. I think Erica?
Republicans across the
Yep,
country. that-
thank you. This is, yeah. Yeah, very interesting.
Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you.
I can start? Okay, perfect. So good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Town Council members, and Town Manager. My name is Erica Texera, and I'm the Assistant Director of Social, Youth, and Senior Services for the Town of Wethersfield. I'm also joined here tonight with Bonnie Smith, our Youth Voices Count Survey Consultant. We come before you tonight to share the results and key findings from the confidential Youth Voices Count survey that was administered online this past November to all 7th through 12th graders that attend Silas Dean Middle School and Wethersfield High School. By conducting this survey, Social and Youth Services was looking to solicit student input and perspective regarding substance use and at-risk behaviors. The data will be used to best guide future planning, provide prevention programs, and promote overall community awareness. We appreciate you allowing us to come here tonight and share this important data. I will now turn it over to Bonnie Smith. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bonnie Smith. I am the survey consultant for Youth Voices Count here in Wethersfield and many other school districts around the state of Connecticut. But I am also a Wethersfield resident and mom of 3 in the school district. Tonight we'll talk about some key findings of the survey this time. It's been administered 4 times in the town of Wethersfield since 2016. And we're doing a PDF, so let me see how I scroll. I have to do it this way. Okay, so Erica covered this point, but what I really like to highlight is the anonymity of the survey. We really can't tell who said what, and I know there's often concerns that we can by youth, and certainly sometimes by adults, but my own kids took the survey, I couldn't tell you what they said. We do a full analysis by subpopulation. So in the full report, there's a lot of detail about different groups by race, ethnicity, biological sex, gender identity, and sexual identity. So that helps identify groups that may be at risk of more behaviors or have protective factors. The response rate was 83%. Last time we did it was 88%, so really strong. Anything over 80% I'm thrilled about. This just presents the demographics of the group as the youth identified themselves. In terms of gender identity, we had about 4% of youth describing themselves as transgender, non-binary, or unsure, and about 14% of students who identified as gay, lesbian, bisexual, pansexual, or describing themselves in other ways or unsure. We're going to start by going back up for a second to gaming assets and consequences. So we asked youth about their gaming behaviors online, and one of the things that stands out to me is overall about 52% of youth feel more connected to others because of their gaming. And then we have some kids who had a hard time stopping, about 10% of students overall reporting that, a little bit more so at that middle school level, about 13%. I'm going to highlight just some key points in all of these. I know that you have this in your packet too. And then you can see about 14% got in a physical or verbal fight because of their gaming online. We asked similar questions about social media. So
About 62% overall feel more connected to others because of their social media. About 54% feel better about themselves, and about 25% feel worse about themselves. And students can select all that apply for this question, so you can feel better and worse about yourself at the same time. I also like to point out here, overall we have about 34% of students who report having a hard time stopping their social media, sort of refreshing and scrolling. That's a new question, so I can't tell you trend on it necessarily, but I like to point it out. We're working with a PDF, sorry, so that does sometimes take a little second. So overall, about 49% of students report never having been bullied in their life before at all, which is great news. We saw a little bit more bullying in this round of surveying in their lifetime than last time, so it's gone up slightly. And then the types of bullying, number 1 is name calling, number 2 are rumors, and number 3 are exclusion. But physical bullying had gone down since our last survey process, reports of physical bullying. And the places students most often report being bullied are classrooms, hallways, and then you see lunch, and then online comes in shortly after that. Looking at emotional health, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper on these here. We're seeing overall great reductions in a lot of the mental health indicators. So this is past year anxiety. About 24% of youth report almost always or always feeling anxious or nervous in the past year. That sounds like a lot. It's certainly, with kids, that's not a small proportion, but it has gone down. And then looking at sources of youth stress, number 1 for high school and middle school is academics. And the sources of stress you see here are consistent with what we see in our other communities as well. So it's nothing surprising to me here about Wethersfield. Post-high school plan stands out as number 2 for high school, and number 3 for high school would be the schedule. Middle school students come in with post-high school plans actually as kind of close to number 2, with peers also being close in line. I always like to point out social media comes in pretty low of all of these choices. And home family life, we have about 27% overall of high school students reporting that being a medium or high source of stress. This slide has a lot of emotional health indicators in them. I want to point out all of them have reduced since 2021, but we have overall about 13% of students having thoughts of self-harm in the past year, and about 8.4% of students reporting having acted on those thoughts of self-harm. 2.4% of students report having a relationship with an intimate partner that involves some sort of physical abuse. 14% of students report being sad or hopeless 2 weeks or more in a row in the past year. And about 8% or 111 students overall report having had thoughts of suicide. This is just a trend graph on emotional health indicators. On the right is middle school, where you actually see more extreme reduction in anxiety, depression, and suicide than we see at the high school level. But overall, since 2021, we see a decline. So again, good news. And then this is the percent change. I put this together to really illustrate where you see the most change by middle school and high school for these 3 indicators. And it just shows that particularly for anxiety and considered suicide, you see that greater reduction at that middle school level. And then comfort-seeking help, about 68% of students say their parent or guardian is a source of help for them if they're having trouble in their life. About 61 are comfortable connecting with peers. School staff is 25%, and I'll dig into that more later. I know Board of Ed's always interested in that one. Coaches is about 18%. Yes, a trusted adult, and then having another trusted adult outside of friends, peers, coach, or school staff, about 42% of students agreed yes. So we took our whole data set in the last year, which is about 34,000 youth in Connecticut, and we compared Wethersfield comfort-seeking help from school staff, those reporting yes, to the rest of the data set. And we found that Wethersfield students agreed yes at all school levels, middle and high school, more frequently than the rest of our sample. I know that because Board of Ed had a particular interest, I wanted to make sure you all saw that too. So I think that's good news about our school district here. This is about having trusted adults, so having one adult you can share with. 93% said yes, feeling safe in the community. About 92% of students overall agreed. More agreement at the middle school student at 93% than at the high school level. Feeling safe at school, similar pattern, more agreement at that middle school level of about 90% saying yes, and about 82% agreeing at the high school level. And knowing how to get help for substance use or mental health concerns that you or your peers or your family may be experiencing. This is a newer question, and pretty consistently we see it's about 87% or 89%, I should say, agree to that. We'll run through some substance use. So this is, have you ever used this substance in your lifetime? I'm going to point out the number one substance used in youth lifetime is alcohol. More than just a sip, not for religious activities is how it's worded in the survey. At the high school level, about 15% of youth had tried alcohol in their lifetime. And then vaping, nicotine products, and vaping marijuana or THC, both very close to one another at about 8 to 9%. We don't see a lot of prescription drug misuse, which we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Past month is in the past 30 days have you used these substances, and this is where we see for the first time generally, and this is a shift we see in other communities, usually whatever is being used most commonly in someone's lifetime at this age is often the same used in the past month, and this is where we see marijuana is the number one substance used in the past month. It's still less than 5% had reported using it, but it's something we're aware of in this political climate. And then vaping nicotine is about 3%, and alcohol is about 3.5%. This is the trend data on substance use. It's all really good news. Back in 2016, we had over 10% of youth reporting past month alcohol use at the high school level, and you can see now that we just talked about it, it's now under 4%. Even marijuana has gone down, according to this trend data, within this climate. Where substances are accessed and used, really the theme here, without my reading too much detail to you, is it's most often accessed at home and used at home. Parents are often a source of substances, either knowingly or unknowingly, and certainly peers are a source of substances, and use at a friend's house is quite common as well. Again, that's not different here in Wethersfield than in other communities, but it helps to have a sense of what's happening in your community. Use at school is something we just keep track of. We can see that, I believe this has actually gone down since last time we surveyed, but the most common substance used at school, particularly at the high school level, is vaping with nicotine products, followed by vaping with marijuana or THC. And this is amongst students who had used substances in their lifetime. This next slide, I won't read it all to you, but we take all the students who take the survey and we group them into two groups. One are students who had ever used any substance in their lifetime, and then students who had not. And we do a statistical analysis across all of the questions in the survey to see if there's a difference by each question. And we do see that here is a list of some examples of where students who have used substances in their lifetime are statistically more likely, for example, to have been bullied more frequently. So bullying may be a risk factor here for substance use. Certainly having anxiety, making their life difficult, came out. Having less clear family rules for gambling specifically. And having experienced violence or discrimination in the past year. And some folks might say, well, so what? But to me, this list is why we should care about youth substance use. Sometimes it's easy to think about a lot of other more pressing issues, But to me, this is a great analysis of understanding how they're related. Substance use is correlated, not necessarily causational, to many other concerns for youth. This is, I'm going to say lesser used substances, but substances that have been used in youth's lifetime. We use this to monitor changes over time. And overall, heroin and fentanyl, I know everyone's concerned about. We typically find in our data that's more of a young adult or adult issue. And the 0.2% who had ever used heroin or fentanyl in their lifetime here represents 3 students. We did ask questions of high school students about their sexual behaviors. We've done this for several years, and I'll just highlight some of those outcomes. So we have about 11% reporting having had sexual intercourse and 12.6% reporting having had oral sex. This question was about having talked to your family about the risks or protection that can be used to have, I'm going to use the term safer sex. Grade 7 and 8 were just about this conversation, not about their own sexual behaviors. Had you talked to your family? And the grade 9 had that question and then other questions related to their sexual behaviors. So the middle school students reported 21% yes, having had that conversation with their family, and about 14% were not sure. The high school, we see more students being sure, with 39% saying, yep, we had that conversation, and 8% not being sure. These are students, I'm just going to close this so you can see better. Maybe. So these are use of protection to present sexually transmitted infections and prevent pregnancy. So about 45% always use protection for STIs, and about 52% always use protection for pregnancy. The other end of the spectrum is the 34% who never do for STIs, and about 31% who never do for pregnancy protection. And this is only among students who report being sexually active. These are the barriers to using those protective measures. Number one, for both boys and girls, we're worried that parents would find out. And then more so the males were embarrassed to buy those products or concerned about cost, but those came to the top. And then the other end of this slide, we can see that some planning ahead has been a barrier, particularly for males, and some females are not sure what products to use or how to use them. We'll end with toxic stress, which is around discrimination, violence, housing challenges, and food insecurity. Have you directly seen or been a victim of violence in your neighborhood, community, or school? Overall, you have about 8% reporting yes, with a little bit higher at the middle school level. Experiencing discrimination is 16.6%, and that's the same for all grade levels. Problems with housing, about 2% reporting yes, having had concerns about that, and about 3.6% reporting having concerns that food would run out. And then we always ask kids if they want to see the survey results. We feel like they provide the data, that they should have the opportunity to see it in some way, and I know that's something Erica is working with me on in our work together, and we have about 44% who were interested in some way. So I thank you so much for listening to that, and that's that.
Thank you, Bonnie. Very interesting. Appreciate you doing that. Questions from counselors? Counselor Zambrello.
Hi, thank you for that presentation. I just had a couple of questions. I'm not familiar with all of these topics. Could you explain what a core substance is? What does that stand for?
Sure. This survey is written really to support grant applications for the federal government. So core substances are substances that are most commonly used by youth and are required measures to write competitive federal grants. So Youth Services has been awarded a wonderful grant from the Drug Free Communities Grant, which is part of SAMHSA, and they require that we collect these core substances: alcohol, marijuana, tobacco, vaping, prescription drugs, and there's one more in there.
Okay, thank you. And one more question, and I'm not sure if you have this sort of information, but I'm curious, when you were showing the trends on emotional wellness, you saw drops below 2019 levels even on most of those indicators, except for anxiety staying fairly the same as 2021 for high school students. I was wondering if you or Erica had any idea why that might be. What factors do you still see in our schools that might be influencing anxiety at that level?
Sure. So I don't know that I can answer why that might be. We do know 2021, the survey was implemented in kind of a difficult time for students. They were just coming back into a more traditional school day at the time that the survey occurred, I believe. Is that right, Erica? So we will always put an asterisk next to 2021 regardless in every district that we were working with at that time. I can't really say, Emily, why it's not as strong a drop as we see at the middle school, but do you want to speak to any programming at the middle school, Erica? I know there's some programs.
Yeah, so we are seeing a lot of support with mental health and behavioral health through grants that the school system has applied for. A lot of data that they've actually used from our Youth Voices Count surveys in the past. So we are seeing the supports throughout the day with students. So I think that is showing a little bit of impact both at the middle school and the high school level. So they have like the wellness center in both the high school and the middle school, and then they also have the Encore program after school at the middle school.
Yeah, thank you. I'm impressed that we know 2021 was an extraordinarily difficult year for so many students, and to see some of those numbers below even 2019 is very reassuring. So something seems to be going right with a lot of these new programs here. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrello. Other councilors? Councilor Carbone.
Hi, thank you, Bonnie, for doing this survey. I just have a question about the toxic stress indicators over the past year. You have gone into great detail breaking down some of the questions previously, like with bullying, for example. You said, well, now it's not physical, it's something else. So I guess I was just curious where you said, have you experienced discrimination? Can you answer how specific that question was? Was it in detail? And also, I just felt like this slide was a little vague, like even problems with housing. Was that a little bit more detailed? I'm assuming this is a generic answer.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't write out the exact wording in the slide because we run out of room. But in terms of the discrimination, that is spelled out in the survey. It could have been based on a number of different factors. So we try to give a pretty strong definition without making a novel. So it could be related to race, ethnicity, religion. I think we name, the way we say it, it has social status, but in a better way than that in the tool. And I can certainly share the tool with you later, Councilor Carbone, if that's helpful to you so you can see it. But we spell it out so the kids know exactly what we're talking about. Okay. And and the discrimination could be direct or indirect, that they're perceived to be wronged. And then housing, I believe the wording is around, like, you're concerned about where you're going to stay. It's not going to be consistent.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council comments, questions? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a couple of questions about the sort of mechanism by which the numbers were derived. The first is, like, how were the surveys procured? Like, did you send out a link? Was this done
sure.
in home, in a class? How'd you get them?
So Wethersfield does a really beautiful job of planning it around advisory. So we call it the stop, drop, and survey methodology, where everybody in the school that's hasn't had a parent opt them out, or students can certainly choose not to participate on their own, is invited to take the survey. I believe a link is put I think it's gone to their email rather than a Google Classroom for Wethersfield. And then there's an instructional video played for them that was made here in Wethersfield about, hey, actually it's Mr. Martin at the high school that made the video for us. Hey, you're going to take a survey. It's entirely anonymous. If it brings up bad feelings for you, you can seek help within school or connect with 211 after school hours is definitely the theme. Then students can enter via a link online. And it takes most students about 13 minutes, but sometimes we have outliers that get closer to that 20-minute mark. Does that answer your question?
It does, very well.
Okay.
The follow-up is, and I'm going to pick up a little bit on Councilor Carbone, I saw a lot of words on this. This is the results sheet, right? Like I saw bullying in there and a number, and physical abuse. Are the kids, children, young adults that are taking this, are they given definitions for those, or are they sort of self-defining if they're bullied or if they're discriminated against or if they've been physically abused? I could certainly see an individual having a wide range of definitions for each of those. So I was wondering how that's...
Sure. So we have a definition of bullying at the start of the bullying section that provides like a great, bullying is, and the definition within the survey. So in that case, the section is entered in with a definition. For the case around physical partner abuse, for example, we have parentheses providing examples what that might look like. So we try to be as explicit as we can throughout the survey, making sure consistent information is provided to the students. And the survey is tested with youth as it was developed. So it's not just adults that have created this tool and then said, kids will get it.
Sure. Two follow-ups. There was on page 37, there was a section where the question was like, not sure whether or not you talked to someone. That happened to be questions related to sex. Mm-hmm. But there was also a section in the beginning that said, it was a certain percentage that said, I don't even know what this question is asking. And I'm wondering if there is I'll start doing a little statistics talk, like almost like a confidence limit in the ability to answer thoughtfully and for the amount that it is honestly, and understanding like the question that's asked. If those two sections were fuzzy, then what is the fuzziness on the other sections? Or I don't know if there's a correlation, or statisticians or sociologists, can understand the vagrancies of understanding the confidence limit in the actual asking the question of the people reporting. Because in those two sections, it wasn't a 0.5%, right? It was somewhere between 10 and 14%, which is a pretty heavy number in a survey.
Well, that was a summary statement in the demographics about I'm not sure right now. So we grouped all the students together. So it wasn't 14% that were unsure, but they were grouped into an aggregate.
I may have misspoken on the technical. I was doing some gradual ones. One's I don't understand what this question is. 41. I guess 41 number. That's a whole number.
Yep. Yeah, it's not a percentage. It's a number of students who, for the sexual identity question, reported not being sure what that question is asking. And I can't say from here whether that was middle school or high school. I would need our analyst to tell me that.
Sure.
But similarly, under gender identity, we see 24 students. But when we get to the sexual behavior part, those are of grades 9 through 12. So other than the question about have you ever talked to your family about sexual behaviors, which those 7th and 8th graders had the opportunity to answer. And they of course could say they weren't sure at that time. So when we look at a confidence interval for this survey, we look at it overall based on the response rate. And in the full report, there's a section around confidence intervals. And since the response rate was so high, we have better confidence intervals, better under comfort that if we repeat the study, the outcomes would be the same. So I can't speak to each question's confidence interval, but we do it for overall for the survey.
So that is certainly like if you have a number of respondents as it looks at against the total pool of possible students, right?
Yep.
But now, I remember taking this in high school, about 30 years ago. And we had all these questions, almost all these questions. There's some new drugs on the scene, but generally the questions are pretty much the same. We talked about bullying, we talked about drugs, we talked about sex, we talked about all those things in pre-adolescence. But there's a certain number of people. I remember we did it, it wasn't a link back then, but it was at a cafeteria table, that will intentionally fill in bubbles that are rebellious.
This is not the first time I've had that question.
And I'm sure it's not, right? So how do we factor in, like, we might see a number that might be shocking or concerning, but knowing that there's a certain percentage of rebelliousness that is just to answer questions in a way that may not be truthful.
So the number one thing is that in terms of analysis, when we go to clean the data, if a student says they've done everything every day all the time, they're not in the sample. They're pulled out. And there's some language in the beginning of the full report that'll tell you exactly how many kids fit that criteria. And it's not a huge number. But secondly, survey science is not a perfect science. So we know that survey implementation provides consistently inconsistent data. So I can often predict, based on a district reference group, just about where the survey will land. And for those of you who may not be familiar, a district reference group is basically the State Department of Education has created 11 groups of school districts in the state of Connecticut for based on a number of different demographics and cost per pupil spending, et cetera. I can almost predict what the outcomes of the survey will be by district reference group because responses within a district reference group are so consistent. Are they perfect? No, of course not. Some people over-exaggerate, some people are a little worried. But it's a good representation, as we'll get with an 80+% response rate.
Thank you for your thoughtful answers.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Other council comments, questions? Councilor Rhodes.
First, I just want to thank you for doing this. These surveys are really important. Having worked in youth services, I know how hard it can be to get information from students. So the anonymity is really important, and they answer truthfully most of the time in my experience. And I just appreciate having the data. I appreciate what Youth and Social Services is doing to support the kids in town. It's really important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rhodes. Further council comment? Because I have one or two myself. So I was going to ask about potential underreporting, but I think you covered it with the Deputy Mayor, but some of the substance abuse answers seem to be low to me. I would think that vaping and marijuana use may be higher, but feeling that maybe some are not reporting that, but you kind of answered that. So,
well, I want to speak to that too, because we have seen the use of all substances pretty consistently come down, with the exception of marijuana holding, generally speaking, in most communities. But one thing I think that happens, because we work through this in our roles working with youth, is that we hear about a lot of the bad things that might be happening in the school, or we hear from our own students maybe that like so much vaping is happening. And while it is happening, it's probably not happening with the majority of students. So in the survey data, you're getting, while it still could be an underreport, it's still like a nice cross-section of the population that we're looking at, rather than those sort of anecdotal things we're hearing.
that's helpful, Bonnie. Two other things. One, have we asked about gambling before? Because I don't remember it, and maybe we did, but I'm thinking that that's an issue we're getting more and more concerned with. And then finally, I'm going to ask, and maybe this is for Erica, the use of the data. We've got all this great data, how we're using it. So gambling first, and then the use of the data.
Sure. So gambling's been in the survey at least since 2018. Okay. It might have been in the 2016 as well. Okay. I'll let Erica respond.
So that's a great question. We will start looking to get more of this information out to the community. We want the community to be aware of what is happening and how do we take steps for prevention, treatment, recovery. So our goal is to, from this data, to start forming, after we do some outreach, so like little focus groups with students, with parents, with community stakeholders, so that we can dive into this data a little more in depth. And then we can provide proper prevention, positive youth development programs from there.
Great. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Bonnie. If there are no further questions, you're all set. Thank you very much. All right, moving along.
Thank you.
We have no hearings. Next on the agenda, D, public comment. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, you have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address. Tom?
Good evening. Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road. Couple quick things I just wanted to speak about. As I mentioned earlier, there's a couple items that I just never got to during my time up at the council here. First item I wanted to talk about was quality of life issues. And one of them has to do with litter. And you know, we see litter all over the place in town. For some reason, people these days seem to think it's okay to toss everything out the window as they're driving by. I wanted to suggest to the council that you consider using the NIP fund money that we get each year. I think it's about $15,000 a year maybe, I'm not sure the number, but I'd like to see that put to work to pick up litter. As a sideline to litter, I want to talk about Town Manager Presley's favorite topic, shopping carts. So I've been dealing with 3 town managers on shopping carts, and we haven't come up with a solution that works. I'd like to put a little bit more focus on that and figure something out. Town Line Road across from the shopping center is an absolute disaster. I was there a couple times yesterday. I see that a pad's been installed for the bus shelter. I'm curious as to the status of actually getting the shelter put up. And my only thought is maybe we just hit these situations financially, have the town pick up the shopping carts and throw them in the scrap metal dumpster at Town Hall and get them out of there. And maybe when the Stop and Shop or whoever runs out of shopping carts, maybe they'll pay more attention to picking them up. Next item, I just wanted to comment on HVAC committee. I was glad to see that it's been limited to just the HVAC project, as I think the committee should be per project. At least that's the way I read the text. And the only thing I saw was, I think there's a typo in the last line where it says projects, plural. It should be, the motion should be for a single project, the HVAC. I think that's it for now. I have one question about the clean diesel project. I hope that we can find out tonight to clarify which truck we're talking about replacing with the clean diesel fund, if we were to receive the grant, and how that truck was selected and why. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Further public comment? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. I too wanted to just make a comment about the quality of life. And I know I mentioned at the last meeting, which seems about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I really believe an analysis should be done as to what citizens can afford to spend on property taxes here in Wethersfield. I think we have a huge population of senior citizens that live on pensions and fixed incomes. And these people came here, in some cases, long time ago, making this their final home. And as I think the town should consider putting caps on increases that we're going to have going forward, and it should be in line with inflation. Keep it down. Otherwise, these people are going to be in trouble. And we know that you have those tag sales, what do you call them? When people don't pay their taxes. And we don't want to see people's homes go up on those tax auctions or whatever in the world they are. Next. I notice in the agenda you have an item for conservation development and affordable housing plan. And as I'm reading through this, and I'm looking at the affordable housing plan as a component by itself, that's going to cost us $15,000. I don't know why we have it in here. I mean, when we look around the state, look in the newspaper, all over creation, they're doing housing plans. And being that the state is the kind of state it is, we don't reprocreate our citizens anymore. It's really on a much smaller basis than what it used to be. We have smaller population. Look at our school. 20 years ago, we had 36,100 students in our school system, and we didn't bring in or import students from elsewhere. We still have 3,600 students, roughly. And we're importing. We're importing students from Hartford and who knows where else. We only get $8,000 a student, if I remember correctly, and it costs us $18,000 a year per student. We take a loss, a big loss on that. And due to the fact that we're not creating more because of the nature of the state of Connecticut, I don't think we should even be bothering looking at affordable housing plans. In the Hartford Clerk article, build as much housing as possible, it says. Connecticut gets lesson on housing crisis from Nevada. But we're being recommended by two state representatives, it's build as much housing as possible. That's exactly what this is about. It's going to support what they're saying. Otherwise, the contractor wouldn't get the job. Housing solution proving elusive. The state added more in 2023, but experts say it's not enough. We're a community that doesn't create more people due to the laws. We don't need this. Maybe we need them over on fast track a little bit for some professionals who can afford to come here and work. But what's in here is affordable housing. That's subsidized housing. That's subsidized for people who are going to make the rest of us pay for them to live there. And I object strongly about that. To be a supporter of something like this, Mayor, I think it's pretty bad. You represent 27,000 people. Well, I'm sure you have a lot of them out there that don't want to support other people. They're having troubles enough supporting themselves. And we need to keep our taxes down. Yeah, here's the fast track. Yeah, they're building over there like crazy. And they're building for the professional. And I don't believe that they're all affordable housing, which means we have to pay for the affordable housing components. We have enough of that in Wethersfield. Here's another article, the long wait for housing vouchers. That's exactly what I'm talking about. They want us to pay.
So you're going to ask me something after 5 minutes left, so you're going to ask me
I'll be done, sorry. I'll be done. And I'll be back.
Thank you.
But long wait for housing vouchers. That comes out of our pocket. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Further public comment? Yes.
Hello. My name is Catherine Pachter. I live at 205 Garden Street in Wethersfield. I live only a few doors down from the accident that involved 3 minors a couple of weeks back. I was actually at home feeding my toddler after walking around the block. And then I heard the speeding car followed by a crash. And I ran out in my bare feet with a lot of other neighbors who didn't care to dress and go out either, not just out of curiosity for what happened, but genuine concern for our neighbors. And we stood and we watched and wanted to aid in some way, but obviously, we can't be all hands on deck. But when we were standing there, I saw the same expression on so many faces, hoping it wasn't a neighbor involved or somebody, a pedestrian walking, or, somebody's kid playing in the driveway, because I know there are 2 families that live right there. Help arrived and took on the situation. We didn't have any feelings of disbelief that this had just happened. Like, we were all kind of standing by and thinking, it finally happened,
at this intersection because nobody really does take the time to slow down and stop through there. And I thought that was a really sad moment for all of us as neighbors to have the same thought running through their head that this finally happened instead of shock, pure shock, you know. So before going any further on that, I know this incident involved reckless juveniles and law-breaking behavior, and that's a much deeper political issue. But I'd like to express my concern for the safety of my neighborhood and take my friends, neighbors, and my family into concern. Church and Garden Street are attractive for mischief, both cut through directly from one end of town to the other. Silas Dean to 91, Route 3 to Hartford Avenue, and people are looking for a shortcut, a way to get down to our popular downtown quickly, and looking for a way to cut through to 91, like a lot of these kids have been doing that are drag racing, Silas Dean, 91, Putnam Park, you know, it's just becoming a bit of a hot spot. So, I mean, just last night, I took note there was a car driving at least 45 down Garden Street, like showing off their muffler or whatever they were doing, you know, and the speed limit sign in my yard on Garden Street says 25 miles an hour, and I'm listening to them zoom by over and over and over again come 8:30, you know. So with the town growing and it becoming more popular, nobody is complaining about their increasing home values or more things to do. It's a great place to live and raise a family, and we are so lucky to have Hamner right down the street, and my daughter goes to Webb Elementary, and we love it. But what we do chat about as neighbors is how unsafe it's become on foot and bike, what intersections we avoid, what times of the day we avoid them is a regular conversation we all have together, you know? So to share a personal experience, I was actually walking my daughter, she was about 4 months old at the time, and I was about halfway into the crosswalk down the road from my house, one door down from my house, and a car slowed down at the stop sign and came about 2 feet from my daughter's stroller and kept going through the intersection, didn't care to stop. And I put my hands up in the air and I said, what is this? And they just waved, you know, they were just like, okay, I'll see you, sorry, and that was it. It's inconsiderate, and there's no way we could possibly make people care more from out of town that are visiting. But I think that at the risk of everyone in town cursing my name, I think that roundabouts are a great solution for these busy intersections. I think roundabouts at Knott and Garden Street and Church and Garden Street, Main Street and Garden, raised crosswalks on the school zones near Hamner and the Rainbow Center might be good, you know, as well as crossing guards specifically on the corner of Church and Garden Street where children are walking to Hamner every day. I see children walking by themselves every day, no parents, you know, and that's the kind of neighborhood we live in though. Like, that's why we love it. That's why we live here. So our kids can walk to school every day, you know. So I think that if we make it impassable in our neighborhood beyond a certain mile per hour, recklessness may still be reckless. It's a popular town, mischief might still happen, but it'll make these main routes to our downtown less attractive to people who are causing mischief, for example, from the most recent accident, running away from the law. And I think it's possible that, you know, we could save something more serious from happening to one of our friends and neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on. Thank you. Councilor reports. Any councilor with a report? Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few reports, actually. From the Economic Development and Employment Commission, along with the Redevelopment Agency, those two kind of go hand in hand with a lot of similar projects. I'm happy to see town employees, board members, everybody else involved working really hard to get some of these properties that are not filled at the moment, filled with new businesses. They're doing a lot of proactive things A lot of work is being done behind the scenes, so we have seen few new businesses opened up, and there's a lot more work being done that we're not seeing every day, but they're really, really working hard. So I wanted to mention them. And I also wanted to mention the Wethersfield Early Childhood Collaborative. I think that group of people does an amazing job. I know a lot of families personally who have benefit from their work, and I think that's a huge investment that we put into these kids for them to be ready when they go into school. I just want to quickly mention that they do an amazing job given how much money they have. So I think that's something that we need to look into in future. Thank you.
Thank you. Further council reports? I have two really quick ones. First, the Veterans Commission met last month, and the big news out of the Veterans Commission is that the chairman, since its inception, Doug Shipman, resigned for some family reasons, and just want to say a big thank you to Doug, who did an amazing job. When we started that commission, he really took the lead and did a lot for the veterans in our town. We have almost 1,400 veterans, and Doug helped with a lot of programming, and we'll be looking to replace Doug, although he's almost irreplaceable. Second is today, had the pension committee and OPEB trust committee, and we met with our financial consultants, and just say that our finances in those areas are doing very well. We had a very good year in 2023, which represents a good year in the market overall, but I can report that the funds are being well managed. Moving on to councilor comments. Does any councilor have any comments?
I think we had a couple of reports.
Did you have a report? Maybe I missed your hand. Sorry. Councilor Zambrello.
Thank you, Mayor.
You have a hand on the table or something?
Yeah.
Get my attention.
And it has been a month since our last meeting, so I have quite a few meetings, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things. Board of Education, something that came up recently was the reading program that's being piloted in the schools right now under the state's right to read law, which I know has been controversial for many towns, and could be an expense for our future Board of Ed budget to keep that going. It is a conversation at the legislature as well, what they can help do to make that process a little more understandable for folks and a little more not so stringent. We also, at a different meeting, talked about a number of things, including a free book club that kids are able to join. They get a free copy of one of 2 books that they get to choose from, and then they have book club meetings, they do some discussions. It seems like they really enjoy it. There was also a presentation from the BIPOC Staff Affinity Group, where teachers, staff, and even parents of color are getting together to talk to each other, have a space where they can vent frustrations, make plans, really get to know each other, and have a core group to get some really good things done. They're going to conferences, they're doing presentations. They've been doing some really great work, and they seem really happy with the progress that they're making, and parents are building confidence for how to speak to everyone in the school system. So I thought that was really great to learn about. We also had the Bike Ped Advisory Committee last week, which was followed by a road safety roundtable hosted by our state reps. So it was a whole night of road safety discussions, very relevant to the last comment that was made, covering a number of things, ranging from the consideration of red light cameras, which will come up before the council at some point in the near future, improving the barriers along the Putnam Bridge Trail, more space for walking trails in town, and a number of other ideas. So that was a very interesting meeting. I encourage you all to join in on that. And the last thing was, right before this, I attended the meeting of the Wethersfield Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities, and I just want to make a plug for Therapeutic Rec, which was mentioned by the Zapata family earlier. They do so much good work. Jalim Cutino, who's the director there, he has so many programs that he's helping to run, and the more people that sign up for these programs, the more money they bring in, the more programs they can do. And these are open to people with disabilities age 3 and up, their families, and they do all sorts of activities. They do things locally, like movie nights and bingo and that sort of thing, but they also go on excursions to Mystic Village and Elizabeth Park and Parkville Market, and I know they do a casino trip every summer. So I just want to make a plug for them. They have some really great programs. And if that sounds like something that your family, someone you know would be interested in, please reach out. There's a lot available.
Thank you, Councilor Zambrella. I'm sorry I missed you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Thanks, Mayor. We've had quite a great council meeting so far. We gave away keys. We heard reports about a lot of good things going on in our town. But I have to report on the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee. And there's a reality of this report, which I wish I didn't have to give. But the reality is that the maintenance of this town over decades and decades is not in great shape. We've got millions of dollars worth of drainage projects to do. We've got millions of dollars worth of recreation projects for upgrade and upkeep of those facilities. We've got ongoing building maintenance on old buildings. And we have about a $3 million expectation to upgrade and renew our public safety radio system. These are very, very big ticket items. And in the past, the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee, which is the part of our budget that prioritizes frankly, the unprioritizable. What do you put in first? The radio system for the police and the fire, or safety at kids' playgrounds? It's almost impossible, but they do the impossible, and they do prioritize it for us. There's a couple different aspects of running this committee that we've put in place, and by we, I really mean the town manager. And that is, one, we're having the CIAC, the committee that does this, prioritize them regardless, sorry about that, my aunt would be upset with the English, regardless of whether or not it's a large ticket item. So if they think that replacing $1 million on a roof is the most important thing for them, they'll put it up there no matter how large the ticket is. In the past, they've shied away from putting a very, very large ticket item on the top of the list, this is in general, because our CIAC budget is usually between $1 and $1.5 million. So if you do that item, you naturally are knocking off a whole bunch of other worthy items. So instead, we're just going to go with a straight priority, determining on what they think is the highest priority in town and working their way down the item list, which is 60 to 80 deep, town manager-ish, and always growing. The second thing we've done is the town council has already put in obligations through whatever actions that we took. Maybe we have a contract in order to pave a certain area of road, or another obligation. Those are not necessarily items that the board, which normally would prioritize those, said if the town council or the town has already obligated the town to do certain work, that's not something that they prioritize, that's an obligation. So that will now come off of the list onto a separate section of the budget, which are obligations that we are honor bound and perhaps even legally bound to pay. So the CIAC list is going to look a little different this year. First of all, we're going to get rid of the stuff we've already obligated our stuff to. And secondarily, we're not going to be afraid of the big stuff, the stuff that's important. And that being said, that list is millions and millions and millions of dollars long. And the reality is that we as a community, as a council, as town leadership, Fred Presley, are going to have to look for different sources to actually pay and do this work. It can't and will not ever be paid down by simply $1 to $1.5 million in an annual budget. There are portions of that will be, but we're going to have to really have conversations with our state delegation, our federal delegation, private industry, in order to create a new dynamic for this town, in order to start knocking off items that are on this list that have been on there for decades in some cases, and also a new way of thinking to say we can't necessarily make this entire lift ourselves. So with that, there's a silver lining that we're going to recognize with the situation that we're in, and we're going to come up with a plan to forge ourselves forward over the next decade so that we can make Wethersfield a wonderful place to live and attack some of the items that are not necessarily things that you'll see on a daily basis. A drainage basin, a culvert underneath a road that might cost $750,000 to fix. These really, really big ticket items, but we also don't want our streets caving in while that stream goes back to the natural flow that it maybe once had without that culvert. So we're tackling it. We'll see it all in the budget. It's going to be slightly different, But let's also recognize that we have a lot of work to do. If there's any counselor here from any party that knows of access to funding for capital improvement projects as infrastructure, maybe, I know some of the counselors here work at the state capitol. If in a bipartisan way we can tackle this issue together with all the resources that we can have, that's what this town's going to need. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anyone else on council reports? Okay, moving on, council comments. Any counselor have any comments? Councilor Timbrow.
I just wanted to talk about the PAL event that just happened. I attended with my children, and honestly, I expected that it was going to be great just because I'm, a huge proponent of police involvement with the community and great relationships and all of that, but I was truly blown away by the attendance. I mean, we got there around 6, it had started at 5, and there was still a ton of families there. There was so many great activities, and it was really honestly heartwarming, and it was great to see the kids interacting with the police officers and the community coming together. And I'm just really excited about this kickoff. I'm glad that I was able to attend, and I just think it's a huge, huge asset to Wethersfield. So just wanted to make that known.
Thank you, Councilor Timbrow. Further council comments? I have a few. I will start where Councilor Timbrow. It was a great event Friday night. It's wonderful to have the Police Athletic League started. This is a great opportunity for our kids to get involved and connected with the police. And it's not just for athletics. Could be anything that they may want, crafts, which we're doing, cooking classes. So this is really terrific connection between the police and our kids, and I thank the police for doing this. Second, I want to mention that this is Black History Month, and we just want to commemorate and recognize the contributions of not just to Wethersfield, but in our state and our country, but all the contributions that Black people made. And I'll note that February is picked because of Abe Lincoln and Frederick Douglass being born in the month of February, and February was chosen as Black History Month. Third, I want to mention that, and I'm going to read this, that the Keisha Barn was located at 30 Highland Street, was listed on the State Register of Historic Places. We just found this out. The State Register of Historic Places is an honorary designation established by the general statutes which outlines the responsibilities of the Historic Preservation Council. Although the designation does not prevent a property owner from demolishing a historic resource, the State Register guides local officials, state agencies, and the general public in identifying historical buildings which merit preservation, and the Keisha Barn was awarded that recently. Couple more. I want to talk about the state of the town, which we just had last Wednesday, January 31st. Many of you attended that. It was a great event put on by the Wethersfield Chamber of Commerce, and I've been going to it for many years, and I think it was the best attendance, certainly the best attendance that I've seen. And then lastly, and this was brought up by our last speaker about road safety, I want to mention that Senator Blumenthal was here Friday, right outside the town hall in the front, talking about the Safe Streets for All grant, $624,000 that is going to be shared between Rocky Hill and Wethersfield. It's a grant to help with looking at potentially better road design for the Silverstein. And I do want to point out that whereas road design is part of the problem, and it's something that we want to fix, and hopefully the Silverstein in the future years looks better and safer, there's another component to it, and it was mentioned tonight that I want to highlight, and that's driver safety, and it's reckless driving. So one thing is road design, but another is we all have to follow the speed limits. We don't want to be running red lights. We don't want to be speeding. We don't want to be distracted with our cell phones. We have to be careful, all of us, in terms of distracted driving. We are going to look, as Councilor Zambello mentioned, at speed cameras, which could be something that can help with that, but it's also on us as individuals to drive safer. So that's all I have for council comments. Moving on is Town Manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'd just like to echo some of the comments about both the PAL kickoff. That was a fantastic event, and thank you to all the staff and the volunteers especially that made that possible. And also the State of the Town address, thanks to the Chamber for putting that on. They did a wonderful job, and it was great to see so many of our residents out for that. I would like to make a quick introduction. He's going to be up here to present the next item, so I won't pull him up here just yet, but I do want to announce the hiring of Justin LaFountain as our new town planner. This is a critical position for the town, and it's a very we are very fortunate that Justin, number one, applied and accepted the position. Justin is a Wethersfield resident. He's lived here for many years. He actually used to work for us once upon a time in the zoning enforcement office, and so he returns to us now, leaving another Connecticut town where he was planning director and coming back home to Wethersfield. We're very excited to have him and look forward to the great work he'll be doing moving forward. Also like to announce that we did, the previous council approved at the recommendation of the Financial Resilience Committee for the town to go out and do yard waste collection as part of our regular trash pickup. So letting everyone know that we did execute that amendment to our contract, and yard waste will begin this spring. So there'll be notices going out to all residents in the next month or two that gives some detail to that. Essentially, it's going to run from early April through the fall into late October, early November. And then we will still be doing leaf pickups, so don't worry. You can still rake all your leaves out onto the side of the road, and we're going to come by and pick them up. But maybe someday we can look beyond that if the yard waste pickup is as successful as I think it will be. Essentially, anything, grass clippings, leaves, small woody material, those types of things can all be put out for biweekly pickup the same day as your recyclables. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be offering the option for residents to purchase a brown barrel, which will be the same size as your trash and recycling barrels. And those will be priced at cost. It's between $90 and $100 depending on what the bid comes back with. But you also have the option of not doing that and just putting them out in the 30-gallon compostable paper leaf bags that you can buy at any of the home improvement stores or Walmart or any place like that. So those are two options, and again, we're going to be coming out with a lot more detail on that, but it will start this spring, and I think it's going to be a great thing for the town. I know a lot of residents have been eager to see that move forward, and thank you to both the deputy mayor and the former deputy mayor for working so hard on that project and bringing that forward, and we'll join one of only a few towns that are doing this right now, and I think what they've seen is a huge reduction in the actual amount we're sending to the landfill and actually pays for this service. So we're hoping as many of you as possible take part in that. You'll note when you do receive the notices from us about how this is all going to roll out, that it will also come with a lot more oversight in what you do put into your trash bin. So you're not supposed to put it in there now, but you will definitely not be allowed to put yard waste into your trash bin, and we will police that, and there'll be repercussions if you do. It's the only way to make sure that this program works effectively. So, but all those details will be coming out soon, and look forward to seeing that kick off. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Town Clerk, Sue?
The Town Clerk's office has begun preparing for the April 2nd presidential preference primary, and this will be the first opportunity for voters across the state to participate in the early voting, and we'll be supporting the registrars as they roll out this new process.
Thank you, Sue. Moving right along is item I1, bids, Plan of Conservation Development, Affordable Housing Plan. Mr. Town Manager.
And for this, I'm going to bring up our new town planner, Justin.
Good evening, Council. Nice to meet all of you. I know some of you from the past, but it's good to see all of you. So I want to give a little bit of background on this. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight. What we're here for tonight is two different plans. The Plan of Conservation and Development, which is a 10-year plan. Different states call it different things. Some call it the Master Plan. Some call it the Plan of Development. In Connecticut, it's the Plan of Conservation and Development, the POCD. That is statutorily required by the state. We're required to update it every 10 years. One thing I want to mention, actually, is that Phil Lohman, who was honored tonight, actually drew some of the maps that were in the previous plan. So I'm looking forward to trying to include those in the new plan as well. So it's a little bit overdue at this point. The last plan was approved in 2013, so we are a year and a half behind, but we are looking forward to get that going. The second plan is the affordable housing plan that is also required by the state. The state started that requirement in 2017. They were technically due in 2022, but once again, we're a little bit behind. Those are required to be updated at least every 5 years, and that is to address the need for affordable housing in the state. And that's not just subsidized housing, that's housing that is 80% of the median income for the state. So that's what a lot of people have started calling that is workforce housing. It's not the old Section 8 housing of the past, it's new modern housing that is meant for the working class residents. And as you know, Connecticut's a very expensive state to live in, so this is the kind of thing that's necessary. So what we have done is, before I started here, we put out an RFP soliciting bids for these plans. We received 5 bids for different parts of the plans. We received 2 that offered to do both parts of the plan, the POCD and the affordable housing plan. The town manager, I, and the former planning consultant interviewed them a few weeks ago, and what we're recommending tonight is selection of FHI Studio, who has offered to prepare this plan along with RKG Associates, and get it done hopefully within 14 months. Their presentation was excellent. There's a lot of public engagement that they'll be coordinating for us. There's going to be at least 10 meetings of the advisory committee, 10 stakeholder interviews, 2 pop-up events, which will be events that go along with town events that are held for the residents to participate in. 1 POCD workshop, which some of you might remember from 2013, was held over on 30 Greenfield Street. That's where you try to bring as many people as you can, get them to participate, try to entice them to give their thoughts and ideas. They're also going to be completing a website for us, creating a survey, preparing press releases, and coordinating with our social media to really get the word out. This is something that we really want as much input as possible. The plan is only as good as the input that we get, and it is the plan for the next 10 years for the town. In terms of the affordable housing aspect, RKG is going to be having at least 2 public meetings and also completing stakeholder interviews. Now, what we talked about with them is they can combine these 2 and really do a lot of the coordination together, which is going to result in some cost savings for us, which is great. So the end cost is going to be $122,000, and that's the bid before you tonight.
Thank you, Justin, and welcome.
Thank you.
Questions from councilors? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
I move to authorize the town manager to accept the bid from FHI Studio and RKG Associates, Inc. to prepare the Wethersfield Plan of Conservation and Development and Wethersfield Affordable Housing Plan for a cost of $122,000.
Second.
There's been a motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent item, item J. Deputy Mayor Forrest.
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Council Rhodes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item J2. Deputy Mayor Forrest.
I move to accept the contract for on-call services from Northeastern Tree Service, Inc., and to authorize the town manager to execute all documents in relation to this contract agreement.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Durek. Any discussion? Yes.
That was part of the consent agenda that was just approved. So we dropped down to M. That's already been approved.
I apologize.
No worries.
Yes, our apologies. So there's no approval of ordinance and resolutions K, there's no unofficial business L, we're on M1. Deputy Mayor Forrest.
I move to authorize the town of Wethersfield to apply for state local transportation capital improvements program funding for the reconstruction of Main Street and Safety Improvements Project Phase 2.
Second.
Second by Councilor Carmone.
Derek's going to give it a little.
Yes, Eric?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Derek Gregg. I'm the town engineer. I was just going to give a brief overview of the project and what it means, because I know some of you are new to the programs that we use. So this particular program is a state program called LOTSIP. It's the Local Transportation Capital Improvement Program. It is Connecticut DOT funds. It's administered by CROG. This year, they solicit projects every year lately. This year, towns can submit up to 2 projects with a total cost of about $4 million. With the way this program works is it pays 100% construction costs and inspection. The town pays for the design cost. This year, there's total solicitations $42 million, which is the highest I've seen it. They have different categories. This one falls into road reconstruction. That's about $29 million worth. To date, I mean, this program has been very helpful to us. 5 of the 6 applications we've submitted have been approved for funding. So I'm here tonight just seeking your approval to apply for Main Street reconstruction and safety improvements Phase 2. That will basically take our Phase 1 project, which has been approved for funding. We haven't gotten the commitment to fund letter yet, but we're working through that process right now. This will extend road reconstruction. For that project, we'll go from Garden to Church Street. This will take it to the next phase, which will go Church Street up to Hart Street. With that, the first project had some off-road trail, 10-foot wide paved multi-use trail that was going to go from the parking lot behind the Keeney Center up to Hart Street. So Phase 2 here will take that also and push it further north up to Cove Park and tie in there. Right now, we're estimating these improvements are somewhere around $3.8 million. I think you have a conceptual plan in your packets. That is it's very conceptual, it's preliminary at this point. But right now, what we're looking to include, as I mentioned, is road reconstruction, additional off-road trail, some new parking areas in the right-of-way, narrower 10-foot wide travel lanes to slow traffic, new concrete curb bump outs, some decorative crosswalks at Hartford Ave and Main Street, which will be similar to the decorative walks we want to do at the center with Church and Main as part of the Phase 1 project, and also Main Street and Center Street during that project. Maybe some raised crosswalks considering their heirloom market. Maybe another one where we have a potential trail crossing located right now on the plan north of River Road. Some improved bus stop facilities. We try to incorporate stormwater treatment into these projects. We do have an MS4 permit through the state that the town has, and one of the requirements is to try and treat water quality more naturally. So we have incorporated some of those little bioswales into Phase 1. I plan to do the same thing with Phase 2. And the other thing that we've put into it is something that's been discussed for a while. It's extending our decorative streetlight system further north. Right now, it ends just north of Hartford Avenue. So with this project, I'm proposing to finish that extension going all the way north to State Street. Phase 1 was going to extend it further to the south to Garden Street. So from Garden to State, with these 2 phases of the project, we can extend the decorative streetlight system. Projects like this, they're just too large for us to do as part of our paving programs, with the cost being what it is. So there really is no cost to apply. I would estimate if we were awarded funds, I would say design cost that the town would be responsible is usually 10% of the total cost. So we may be looking at maybe $200,000-$300,000 cost on that. We have come across that before. We just finished Walker Hill Road. Council allocated a couple $100,000 out of the road fund to cover the cost of $4 million worth of improvements. So we're not there yet, but if we get to that point, we can have some conversations about how best to fund that portion of the project. So really, I'm here tonight just seeking your approval to apply. The applications are due February 21st, so if approved, we'll just continue with preparing them and getting them submitted.
Thank you, Derek. Council, questions for Derek? Any questions? Seeing none, there's a motion on the table. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
Okay, item M2, Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Move the council to authorize the town manager to apply to the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, or DURA, grant program, grant for the purchase of a Freightliner dump truck model 114 SD, glad you got that one, as part of our vehicle replacement efforts and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Second.
Second by Councilor Derek, and I believe we have Sally and Vlada to talk about this. Go ahead, please.
Hi there. Yes, so we're requesting approval to apply for the State Diesel Emission Reduction Act. funding opportunity. This will be to replace or to purchase a Freightliner dump truck. The model number is 114 SD. The cost of the truck is about roughly $304,000, and we'd be receiving reimbursement of 25%, so roughly $76,000 if we received the grant. We would be replacing it for a similar vehicle, another Class 8 dump truck. Planning for it to be a 2025 Class 8 truck with an EPA certified engine, so it would be reducing emissions. And for purposes of the grant, they would like to see that there's 3 years of life still left on the vehicle. The current year is 2009, so it's about a 15-year-old vehicle right now. The scheduled replacement would have been in 2027, but as I said, it would have needed that 3-year life expectancy still remaining. And the reason we're looking to switch out this particular vehicle, to your question, is that it is the next one in line to be replaced. It's also having some rust issues at this point. It's a multi-purpose truck, so it carries salt, it picks up leaves, and due to the salt, it's just been worn down. And now that it's a 15-year-old vehicle, just finding parts for it has become a little bit difficult. Maintenance is a little bit more expensive. And with this grant opportunity here, it looked to be a good time to apply to replace this, since it is next on our list and we are a little bit behind on the replacement. So,
Thank you, Vlada. Any questions for Vlada or Sally? Councilor Carmel.
Hi, Vlada. My question about the truck, so you're feeling right now that the truck is, within 3 years, would need to be replaced.
Yes.
Is this something that's breaking down often?
yes, so at this point, since when it's being replaced, since it's becoming a bit more difficult to find parts and to do maintenance on it, spending more time off the road. So that's just causing some backups of work sometimes. So there's the replacement would be able to be functioning more often and consistently.
Thank you. And if we do get the grant, is there a time limit where we have to purchase it within a certain period of time?
Yes, so I believe it's by the end of 2025. You get about a year and a half or so to purchase for this one.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Carbone. Further council questions? Councilor Bailey.
Sally, what truck is it?
It's truck 26.
26?
Yeah.
You know that one, Councilor?
Junk.
Well, there's an endorsement, I know. Yeah, that's the endorsement. Further council questions? Deputy Mayor Forrest.
Just for clarity, though, this is actually an authorization to apply for the grant, not necessarily purchase the truck, which will probably come back before council for the official approval.
Yes.
Agree? All right. Thanks.
Further council question or comment? There's a motion on the table. All those in favor, saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. M3, adoption of a contract for AFSCME 8/18/22 Supervisors Union effective 7/1/23 to 6/30/26. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Council, I move to approve the adoption of the AFSCME 8/18/22 Supervisors Contract effective July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2026.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second of Councilor Zimmerman. Erica.
Hi, good evening, everybody. This is our 818 group. It's our supervisors and other high-level division heads and other management folks, our professionals here in the town of Wethersfield. Again, like when I spoke to you about the police department, recruitment and retention is really the theme, of this negotiations. A couple of things, major thing that we did is back in 2018, the town of Wethersfield created a two-tier system for this group with a 7.5% reduction in salary for those hired after 2018. That has become a problem for us in terms of recruitment and retention of our, really our professional and top-level employees. This contract would end that on 7/1/24 this coming fiscal year. Those on Tier 2 would move to Tier 1. And a couple of provisions with that, though, is that they would not receive any step increases that they might have otherwise been eligible to receive in year 2 of the contract. And they would get moved to the next step that gives them an increase. They're not necessarily getting a one-for-one jump, if you will, to the new plan. So that's our biggest change in this contract. We feel, it's very important to do that right now. Again, some of the folks that you've heard from tonight, we've had difficulty finding positions to be filled from, and that's from this union. Other economic changes, we have general wage increases of 3, 2.75, and 2.8 for the 3-year contract. We've made some other small adjustments in pension obligations, and we have increased health insurance contributions from the employees throughout in the contract. And then there's just some basic administrative changes throughout, basic language changes, things that are outdated, incorporating things like MOUs that we've done over the last couple of years and incorporating them into the contract. This contract was a mediated contract, so we were able to come to a full tentative agreement with the help of a mediator back in November. The contract was ratified by the union in January, and that's why we have it in front of you tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Erica. Council questions? Councilor Zambrello.
Thank you. And you said this, I just want to clarify for the record. So under other economic changes, the last bullet, it says no step increases for those moving to Tier 2 in FY25. So should that be Tier 1?
Tier 1. Yes,
Okay,
typo.
thank you.
Sorry.
Good catch.
Just want to make sure.
Good catch. You still have the floor. Councilor Zambrello, anything else?
Do we need to amend this? Is that, or is this just?
That was just background.
Okay.
You're approving
No,
the actual
no further
contract.
questions.
Yeah.
But good catch. Other council comments? Seeing none, there's a motion on the table. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And item 4, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
One of the projects I talked about on the CIAC list. I moved this council to create an advisory building committee to oversee and implement the replacement of HVAC equipment at the Salestein Middle School, including all associated construction and administration of public school grant funds. The committee shall consist of 7 members, each of whom shall have such expertise as the council may deem necessary and appropriate, but at least one of them shall have experience in the construction industry. The committee will serve until the project or project's completion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Clancy. Do we need, council questions? Councilor Dirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Is this commission just for the HVAC replacement?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Sorry about that. Passes unanimously. Item N, ordinance and resolutions for introduction. Number 1, Mr. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As you all may know, the state amended the state law with respect to property maintenance, essentially giving local governments a lot more authority around what to do, particularly with, blight as it pertains to commercial properties. We're limited in what we can do currently under the previous state law. With the new state law, it allows us to fine at a much higher level when we have prolonged blight issues with commercial properties, and it also allows us to take greater action to essentially move to compliance or even take the property at the extreme. So the proposed amendments will bring us in compliance, bring us up to date with the current state law that gives us that full ability, the full extent of the state law. It also makes some adjustments to our previous ordinance that was out of date, that hadn't been updated from previous updates to state law. So as an example, the way we cite properties in our own ordinance, it allowed an inspector to go out, cite an individual, home, business. If they went back out 4 weeks later and there was still an issue there, they could tack on all those days together and fine them for each day. Under the state law, we really can't do that. We have to go out each time, because you can't assume that it wasn't corrected and it's back to the situation again. You actually have to document it. So there's some cleanup in that language to make us more compliant with state law. Overall, the crux of this is to give us the full power of the state law here at the local level so that we can take care of some of these particularly commercial blight issues.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Any questions? Let me just add that this is really important. We are looking to increase the fine as of the third or after the third violation up to $1,000. We have a lot of property owners who are not taking care of their, predominantly commercial, not taking care of their properties, and this will give us, as a town, the authority to kind of move on them and to, if you will, put their feet to the fire in terms of the property owners and give us an opportunity to push them, if you will, and maybe to move the properties and get them to make some decisions on cleaning up their properties, potentially selling their properties. It's just an added ability, and it allows us to, if we approve this, to fine up to $1,000.
So, Mayor, this, of course, is just for introduction, and so at the next meeting, there will be a public hearing and then a vote at that time, and we'll have an additional presentation at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Any questions on this? Okay. So moving right along, let's make sure. Public comment? Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Oh, Barbara? Please state your name and address.
I'm well trained. I'd like to make, my name is Barbara Wu, I live at 79 Main Street. My comments have to do as a grace note to what the mayor said about Black History Month. Lemuel Custis was one of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was Hartford's first African-American cop, and he was a Wethersfield resident. I never met Lemuel, but my husband, who was his podiatrist, did, and my son, who worked for my husband, did. They said Lemuel was the epitome of a gentleman. I think that as a town of Wethersfield, we should be extremely proud of Lemuel having lived in this town. His father was born under slavery and came north after the Civil War, worked for one of the presidents of Aetna. Lemuel went to Hartford Public Schools and graduated in 1939 with a degree from Howard University, and in 1940 became a Hartford cop. And then suddenly he disappeared, much to the distress of the African-American community in Hartford, until they learned he joined the Tuskegee Airmen. He was the last of the original Tuskegee Airmen and died in 2005, and I think we should honor him. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Further public comment? Mr. Young.
Good evening, Robert Young, 20 Copper Mill Road. As I was talking about the taxpayer and the cost of living here, which is a lot, especially those who are seniors and on fixed incomes. We're also confronted with all of this inflation that is coming out of Washington and wherever else. You know, as of the 1st of February, 2024, the U.S. Treasury's official figure for the debt for the federal government is $34.2 trillion. That equates to $101,651 per person. They're saying that in the year 2033, I know it's 10 years from now, but the way that we're spending, it says the national debt is projected to be $52.4 trillion. And it's going to be rated as junk on the bond market. Last night on 60 Minutes, the great wizard of the Federal Reserve spoke to the public about the ongoing situation. And he says that the U.S. is on an unsustainable fiscal path. Yet, he doesn't care. Jerome Powell is the one who said it. And then today, it says in the market that Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan Chase warns that a market rebellion against the $34.2 trillion national debt It's just unbelievable. It's unsustainable, and something has to happen. So what is going to happen? Are we going to see interest rates go down? Or are we going to see interest rates go up? And my opinion is they're going to go up. Going to go up more. Because of this debt. Only if the administration decides to try to stall this deficit that we have. On the other hand, they may let it go to 52.4 trillion, and we'll really be dead in the water. You know, they talk about inflation, and we had inflation in 2022, 2023 because of COVID. It was running at what, around 8 to 9%. Now we're hearing that, the inflation's around 3 or 4%. But what they're not telling us is the 3 or 4 is on top of the 8 or 9% that we already incurred. And what we incurred was expensive items to buy. I read on the internet, $7 for French fries at McDonald's. I mean, come on now, guys, there's something wrong here. Same with the big burger that they have. There's so much, $6 or something. This is inflation. And then our citizens have to live through this. And how do we survive through it as we have a town that has a history of increasing our taxes at every moment possible? And because of this, we're going to see a lot of people really hurting if we don't see taxes being held down. You know, there's another article regarding a Connecticut physician that leased a Toyota Rove number 4 car and was paying $718 a month. Why she got that kind of car is because she didn't know how to drive in the snow, because she was a new arrival. And she had to pay the price. And that goes on for everything we look at. Go to the grocery store. Go anywhere. I mean, I went to the car dealership today and brought one of my cars in to be serviced. Horrendous price compared to what it was. 20% increase. Why? Filter that goes on top of the engine and one that goes in the cabin of the car. It was $70, and all they are is made out of paper. Fancy paper costs $70. And that's where we are. And every citizen in town, or I should say most of the adult citizens, have a car. And we're going to go through all of that going forward. And as we know, if taxes are going to go climbing up, we're going to have more people hurting. And that's not your duty, to hurt people. Taxes are meant to be a contribution from the citizens towards the betterment of the state or the local government. And the government part is to ensure fair and equitable taxation among all members of society, regardless of their wealth. Yes, I know. I would just hope that you would start to consider in your budget deliberations these issues that are going on in this country and in this state and in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Further public comment. Tom?
Good evening again. Tom Mazzarella, 600 Walcott Hill Road. I'll be brief, a little bit closer to home. Vehicles. So I've been pushing for approximately, I'm going to say 10 years, for this town to implement a maintenance plan for vehicles, all vehicles, trucks, police cars, everything. There's a unofficial guideline of a 12-year replacement schedule that I've asked for a copy of it, never received it. But the theory is that after a vehicle reaches 12 years of age, it's exceeded its useful life and it needs to be replaced. Currently, as far as I know, we still have truck 9 and 10 in service. There were the two Sterlings bought in 2006. And I'm going to suspect that the reason that one of those two vehicles is not being selected for this clean diesel program is that it's currently 18 years old. They're currently 18 years old. And the program says they have to last another 3 years. Well, if we had replaced those at 12 years when it was first requested by our town staff, how did we get to 18? Well, we got 6 more years of use out of those two vehicles. And I've been tracking the cost. I've asked for the cost, minimal cost, to keep those trucks on the road. And we've been told that the parts are hard to get, the trucks are obsolete, yet they continue to plug along. So I'm having a problem understanding how we're going to use truck 26, which is only 3 years newer, and now we're saying, yeah, it's got 3 more years left. Well, it's beyond the 12 years already. So how can you say it's got 3 more years left? I mean, I think we've shot ourselves in the foot by maintaining this statement, this public statement, that the vehicle is obsolete after 12 years. That would say that we'd have to use a 2015 vehicle, which is one of the newest vehicles. So, yeah, we could save $76,000, but why are we replacing the truck? To clean up the environment? The truck's only they've been averaging between 3,000 and 7,000 miles a year. So it's not a significant amount of pollution that we're contributing. If it's just to save $76,000, then I think we should be replacing the oldest truck, the truck that we've been told for years and years that you can't get parts for, and it's no longer useful, instead of a newer truck. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Further public comment? Seeing none, before we adjourn, I'll just mention that the next council meeting is Tuesday, February 20th. We won't be meeting on Monday the 19th, as it is President's Day, and the town will be closed, the schools and the town will. I'll take a motion to adjourn, if anybody. Does everyone want to stay here?
So moved.
No executive session. So moved by Councilor Zambrello. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll all second it.
Councilor Timber, seconds. All in favor, saying aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.